Hi, welcome to Board Gems. This is my regular video series in which I cover older board game gems, new gems on the 3rd, 13th, and 23rd of the month. But I also do other videos, and those will usually be published on the 8th, 18th, or 28th of the month. Not every 8th, 18th, and 28th. But anyway, this is one of them. This is what I'm calling Board Game or Board Gem, anyway, BG Gibber. So it's just me talking at you, okay? It's going to be about games, or it's going to be about my channel, or me, or something going on in my life. I can't promise I'm going to limit the scope of BG Gibber episodes to just games, but it'll be whatever I think about. But don't worry, I'm not going to get into, like, politics or something like that. I'm not going to turn you off, don't worry. But it is a talking head video, so, you know, this is going to be hard to stomach for 20 minutes or however long this video is. So, but I'll just do them once in a while. It's fun. There's just things come up that I want to talk about. I've acquired a lot of games for the channel. A lot of games. There's a request list on Board Game Geek. I ask people, it's like, if you have recommendations or suggestions, like great older games that you don't think get enough love, make a suggestion. Or search the list, and if it's already there, thumb it up. So I know what to cover. And I know what games to acquire. A lot of games go through my hands. There are games that I own. There are games that the restaurant has, either location has. And there are games that sound interesting and I don't have, but sure, why not? I'll acquire them. I'll get them in a local trade, or I'll buy them or something. I don't care. If they're suggested on the list, sounds interesting, I'm interested in the game. So I'm going to try to acquire it. And some of them are quite rare. You know, I can't promise that any game that gets suggested will be covered, but I will say that I have already acquired a lot of games that have been suggested. So my most recent acquisition is actually Merchants of the Middle Ages, which was suggested. So, and you can't see it, but it's stacked up with the Philosophia games, Dream Factory and Chinatown, all in these massive boxes. So looks quite nice on the shelf. So thank you for that suggestion. But honestly, I don't know when I'm going to get to these games. I have to be very picky. Right now, I'm not meeting my regular game group very often. Most of the games that I cover are games I'm already familiar with, or games that I'm able to introduce to my family and that we've enjoyed and have been able to play a lot. But I have to be very picky about which games I introduce. So my wife is very interested in learning new games, but there are specific styles she doesn't like. So she doesn't like cooperative games, for example. She doesn't like racing games. And my son he's more flexible in terms of the style of game he likes, but he's much less interested in learning new games. And he worries, like, to him, I get this, I totally get this. He feels like if he learns a game and he plays it and it's just mediocre in his eyes, maybe we all agree it's mediocre and we never play it again, that was a waste of his time. And I don't disagree. I have that exact same attitude toward the longer, more complicated games. I don't have that problem with lighter games. I'll learn all sorts of light games. Play them once, whatever. We'll try them, give them a try, right? It's still fun, you know. You're not really out much time and effort if you learn a light game. So I don't know. He and I differ in that sense. He's smart. Like, he's super good at chess. I never pushed it on him. He just naturally gravitated to chess, and he loves it, and he's amazing at it. I cannot touch this guy when it comes to chess. So, I mean, it's not like he doesn't want to think. He just finds, and it's my fault probably, he finds the act of learning a game by me teaching it to be really boring. And I edit these videos. I know exactly how boring my voice is. The joke is that as soon as I start teaching a game, both my wife and son start to yawn. And they say they don't know why, but I know why. So now that COVID restrictions are kind of loosening in a lot of places, I'm wondering how that's going to change hobbyists' approach to games. And I did have one observation from seeing gibber from other hobbyists. And I don't know how widespread it is, but I think it's interesting to think about. So, obviously during the pandemic, a lot of people started to play more board games online. And of course, not just board games, video games, but whatever. And there are sites that help make that happen, right? Yucata.de. I went back there in full force over the pandemic, and I supported them during the pandemic. And I'm still on there. Love that site. And more famous, of course, now is Board Game Arena. And there are other sites. And a lot of those sites really make it easy to play complex games, right? You don't have to set up and, sort out all these different cards or pile up these cardboard tiles. The game takes care of setup, and of course, the game enforces the rules. So in a way, you don't have to internalize the rules as much as if you had the book in front of you and you had to teach it to people. It's like, no, the game takes care of that. You can play and it'll prevent you from doing something wrong. So you can actually play and get through it and have fun just by clicking whatever. And, maybe it takes a couple games to figure out oh, this is how you win, right? But you can do it by stumbling through. And if you're learning a game at the table and you have to learn it well enough to be able to teach other people, not going to happen. All right? You have to know those rules inside and out. But yeah, setup is really, really long, right? And enforcing the game, right? If you're the one teaching the game, you have to make sure everybody's playing by the rules, because it's easy to make a mistake. If the other people don't really understand what's going on, they might do something that was accidentally illegal, right? And the fact that these sites enforce those rules make playing those complicated games much, much easier. The gibber that I've been hearing a little bit is that for some people, for some hobbyists, when they're back to in-person gaming, they don't want to necessarily go back to those uber complex board games, because those are much more pleasant to play online. Don't have to set it up, don't have to internalize all the rules to prevent illegal plays, mistakes being made. The game is over quicker, usually, right? Certainly there's no takedown, at the end of the game. Because they're so easy to play online that some people are saying, you know what, I don't want to play these games in person anymore. Those games are better online. When I get together, I want to play games that are more interactive, right? Maybe games with negotiation, maybe games with auctions. These are games that don't work very well online, right? And they're highly interactive. And so you might see a return, at least for in-person games, for some of those older classics I like to talk about. Games from the golden age, I like to say, of board gaming, when games were, not always, but generally speaking, more interactive. The rules were simpler, but you cared about what other people did. You could see what strategies they were going for, and there was competition. And there was a shared experience there in that in-person competition. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if we see a return to some of those more interactive games to be played in person, and maybe more of those really complex games, those games with less direct interaction, or even less interaction, less caring about what everybody else is doing. Those games are better online, and maybe they should stay online. Just a thought. So one bit of news that is shared. Oh, I have to share this. I've covered a game for this channel called Carolus Magnus. Now, this is a game, it is one of my more popular videos in terms of views and likes. It's a great game. My family enjoys it. It's one of those games, simple rules, can be thinky, but you also can't look ahead too much. There's a random element that keeps you from looking ahead too far, right? Anyway, watch that video. It's apparently a good video, and I'm quite proud of the thumbnail too. The joke is now, right, that these historical themes on basically abstract games, it's always been kind of a ha-ha, what does this really have to do with Charlemagne, right? I mean, it's brown tiles and colored cubes and an orange pawn. If you squint and drink a lot, you could probably convince yourself as a king, but it's an abstract game, right? And me, I prefer games with a slight theme over complete abstract games. But you could argue Carolus Magnus is absolutely an abstract game. So it just has a very slight glazing of a theme, a very slight historical setting as garnish on the abstract experience. Well, the joke is always like, oh, that's boring. Who wants to learn about Charlemagne? Hey, when I was a kid, we all loved Charlemagne. We loved to play as Frankish kings. Everybody wanted to play as Charlemagne. Poor Polly got lots of nosebleeds, though. We always made him play as Carloman. The joke is, of course, the theme could be anything, right? Oh, it could be, why couldn't it have a cooler theme, right? What about aliens or zombies? That'd be cool. That'd be false advertising is what it'd be. If the game is a dry, thinky experience, give it a dry, thinky theme. Carolus Magnus, Charlemagne. For a lot of people, not very exciting, but it's truth in advertising, because that's can be what the game presentation and experience can be like. If you were to take Carolus Magnus and put a zombie or alien theme on it, it would just be ridiculous. A fantasy theme? What? So the news is there's a new version of Carolus Magnus coming out by Cranio Creations. I don't know how the rules have changed. I know it's essentially the same game. And its name is... I don't know. I can't remember it. Because it's a generic fantasy name that's got a Y or two in there. And it has what is so common now, the fairy tale fantasy theme. So instead of different orders of knights that you're trying to win over. They're unicorns and fairies and imps and stuff. And it's like, oh my god. You look at the box cover for this, nothing about it makes it stand out from literally any other fairy tale fantasy themed board game out there. So what's going to happen? People are going to just walk by this game. Does that look cool? I don't know. Does it look cooler than the hundreds of other games that have similar nonsensical names and have similar cover art? Is it going to stand out compared to them? No. Some people will buy it accidentally. And unless they've changed the rules drastically, people who are excited about winning over fairies and unicorns might be a little disappointed in the dry, abstract nature of the game. This game will be forgotten about in another couple of years. Carolus Magnus is a great game and is one of the best 3-player games ever made. And I'm glad that a whole new generation of gamers are going to discover this game, but not many of them are going to discover it. And they're going to be like, and then it's going to be forgotten about in a couple of years. That was Carolus Magnus's return to the hobby world, and it will not have lasted very long. It's disappointing. What's going to happen is it's not going to be timeless, okay? Any of these games that have made up fantasy names, they're going to be forgotten about. And you can say something like Carolus Magnus, like, oh, a game about Charlemagne on an abstract game. Oh, how dated. You don't think you're dating your game now? Putting a fairy tale fantasy setting screams, oh, this game came out between 2015 and 2025. You're just dating it just by choosing the common theme and setting that everybody else is doing nowadays. And they're just all blurring together into this weird fairy tale fantasy green and pink and purple and orange kind of wash. And I'm still glad I have my copy, I tell you what. I know you probably thought this already, but I'm going to say now, this is 100% serious. I am 100% off the Call to the New. Now, I've always been a person with an eye back toward the old games, but I've also had an eye toward the new games. And, keeping up. I like to keep up, right? The style of games I'm not a fan of, and the presentation of these new games I'm definitely not a fan of. So I'm going to say right now, and this is a problem as a YouTuber, because You know, the successful YouTubers are going to be the ones that cover new content. And I'm going to tell you right now, I have zero interest in new content. If I look at anything new and I'm interested in anything new, it'll be like a new version of an old game. I still will do stuff like that. Talk about the older edition as that comes out, sure. But like from my own personal interest, I have zero interest in pretty much any of the new games coming out. I look at the rules and I'm like, yep, I can tell I'm not interested in that. And then I go and I pick up Merchants of the Middle Ages. It's just some, older game that maybe I hadn't played before, I hadn't given a chance. So I just wanted to mention that I'm 100% off of the Cult of the New, and you might have thought that was already the case, but it's official now. And I'm going to stop, except for reprints, like I said, I'm pretty much going to stop looking at new games. I'm only going to be looking at older games, because those are the games that interest me. Those are the games I like. The newer games interest me so little. They really do. So I'm going to double down on the focus of this video series. I know a lot of people I shouldn't say a lot, I shouldn't exaggerate, but there have been people who are like, hey, I'd love to hear your take on newer games. No new games. This is my niche. I'm going to talk about older games. And the older games are great, and the newer games, maybe they're great, but they're great for a different type of person. And they're really, really not for me. I'm a veteran in the hobby. I've been in the hobby for over 15 years. And, there were games before I was in the hobby that I discovered later that I loved. So there are games that I haven't played except for this channel. And I've played them, and they came out before I was into board games, right? They were older games, but I tried them for the channel and I loved them. Game styles change over time, and that's fine. And you know what? Board games have attracted a lot of newer people recently in the last several years, and that's fine too. Welcome. You can have my seat. Here you go. You can have my seat up front. I'll take one in the back and just kind of keep a vague eye as to what's going on while I enjoy all these older games. I'm building my permanent collection. That's what I want to build toward. And then once I have my permanent collection, maybe I'll still do the YouTube series, but I'm probably going to check out. I don't know. I might just check out of new games, stop logging into Board Game Geek every day like I do currently, and just enjoy all the great games that I have. Maybe there are great newer games that I'll miss out on. I'll be fine. I'll be fine with this massive wall of great games. So don't worry about me. I'll be fine. I have one mailbag episode left. So before the anniversary episode, BG Gibber 1, I asked for questions and I got way too many. At least too many if I wanted to answer them all, which I do. So I've broken them up into topics, and there's one topic left, which is the smallest topic, and that is about this channel. Maybe it's about the decisions I've made around it, or maybe it's my creation process. That would probably be the shortest episode. So what I'm thinking instead is I'm going to make that last episode just like a grab bag. Just a mailbag grab bag. How does that sound? If you have a question that you would have asked for the mailbag episodes, but you kind of missed the boat on them, it's not too late. Ask whatever, even if it's already been asked by someone else. Ask it again. I don't care. We'll do, for the last mailbag episode, we'll do those questions about the channel, but also just anything else that comes in. So this will be the last mailbag episode for another, 10 months or something. So last chance, get your questions in. Thanks for listening and watching. Older games don't stop being good just because new games come out. All right, take care.